Uh,
Oh dear. Oh,
oh,
it's a
yeah,
lovely day for skiing. Anyway.
I tell you, yeah, the sun is shining and the rocks are gleaming.
How you doing, buddy? Good.
Not too bad, not too bad. I suppose it's like everything else, there's good weeks and bad weeks.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? It's always the way,
Yeah,
ups and downs.
that's it. I mean, that's life, and it's just you gotta keep the focus on when you're down, you just gotta turn it around a bit, find something to latch onto that'll change it, that'll uh, put some love and light in your life.
I suppose you could call it like you need to steer it, really.
Yeah,
Attitude, I suppose, really, steer your attitude.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, when you change your attitude in the morning or make that intention in the morning time, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to meet great people today. Or ask yourself a question. What good stuff am I going to come today? Then it changes the whole energy of it. It's too easy to get into the negativity and spiral downwards, where,
Yeah, and also the flip side is there as well. I don't know whether you find this. I'd love to hear from you about it, but I found that in the past, the scripts really written by people, the personal advisors and the positive mental attitude people. So you make a plan and you say, what actions am I going to take? What successes am I going to have today? I don't think it's anything like that at all. I think it's more attitude rather than action. But I'd love your opinion on it.
yeah, well, I'd say, well, first of all, you got to have the right attitude, because without the right attitude, nothing's going to happen. But then again, at the same time, you need to know where you are now and where you need to go. Otherwise, it's just like being in the little boat, and it's like wherever the tide will take you or the wind will take you, that's where you end up. So it's much easier, I think, to say, okay, I have an idea that this is where I think I'd like to go. Or if you're not too sure, it's to kind of
Yeah.
say, well,
Let's
I'm open to
explore
going
kind
there.
of thing.
Exactly. Or to even intend that you're going to have a good day, or that you're going to meet good people. Whatever is not going to cause conflict within you. Because I find with a lot of stuff, the way say, I'm a millionaire, and inside of you saying, no, you're not. You're no fucking way, nowhere near a millionaire. So
An internal argument, automatic.
exactly. So you need to sort of be able to quiet that voice and say something or declare something that's not going to cause a little rift or a little imbalance. By saying like I'm open up to it, or everything is going my way, or every day I'm getting better and better. Especially I think especially when you're feeling like my knees have been at me a lot now the last week, and my legs, and it's like the whole power seemed to be gone in my legs. So rather than getting worried about, I was saying every day my knees and my legs are getting stronger and stronger. Now, that's not causing a conflict within me. I'm still saying, oh fuck, that they're painful now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I remind them, but they're getting better. I'm opening up to them
It's the
getting
old,
better.
it's the old on the mend uh,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
concept. It might not be great now, but I'm on the mend. It's improving.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Sun is coming out tomorrow.
Dream on, the rest of the world says.
Exactly, exactly. But I think we need to do stuff like that to ourselves. It's kind of listen to my father now. He'll always pick something negative, and he'll stick with that. And I said, why don't you flip that around and say, uh, today is a great day? Because he's always saying, my hands, I can't, I can't, I can't. And I say, why don't you turn around and say, yeah, I can, or I'm getting better, or I'm open up to do it. Ah, no, no, that's not reality. But he's programming himself all of the time that he can't, and with he's a master at it. He's a master at creating stuff that he doesn't want, because he's every day he's affirming that I don't have, nothing's going my way, nobody likes me, nobody loves me, and then he ends up sitting by himself, and they wonder, geez, what happened there,
Mm. It's the thing is, it's the human condition. We all go through it. I've been through it myself. During my health issues in the last few years, I've been through it myself. But I think you know, once again, what you're talking about there is really recognizing it when it happens
Yeah,
and
catching
giving
yourself.
it that steerage again, and just say, oh no, I don't
Yeah,
want to be here. So
yeah,
if I don't want to be here, I'm not going to step towards it. I'm going to step towards something else.
yeah, exactly. I remember, I mean, it's the memories coming up now when I was in hospital. I was 20, it was either 20 21, and I had meningitis and I was supposed to die that year. I was a paraplegic because I'd been in a coma for a couple of weeks or stuff like that, so my whole musculature was gone, and all I could do was move from left to right or up and down. That was it. And so the doctors were telling the parents, that's it, look, we've tried everything, nothing's working. Get ready for the big black box. But in my mind, I was saying, now next year I'm going to be trekking across Europe, and I'll be going down to which way am I going to go? I'm going to get the train and go through France and then go over to Italy and go. And this is what I'm saying to myself. So when I did start to get better, again the doctor said to the parents, he's going to be in a wheelchair for at least 2 years, or he'd be a vegetable. And but still, I was telling myself, no, I'm going trekking across Europe. And 6 months after getting out of the hospital, I was trekking across Europe, despite what everybody else said I was going to do. So I mean, there is a lot to it. Now, I was doing that subconsciously. I wasn't aware that I was doing. But you could imagine, because I mean, I read loads of stories and loads of examples of people who have done it consciously. Bruce Lee, that time when he in that fight and his back was gouged, and he was
Yeah,
lying in traction for 6 months, and he started writing the book and visualizing himself. Joe Dispenza, he was another example, and there's plenty of examples out there. So it's like when we take control of what's in there and our self-talk, it's that we can change things and we can have a positive effect on it. It's sometimes we feel sorry for ourselves and it's like, nobody wants me. Our life is hard. We go like that. And that's okay to entertain that for a few minutes, but it's got to say, all right, lads,
yeah.
cop yourself on here now, and let's change that.
I'm not listening to this anymore. I'm
Exactly.
changing the conversation now.
Yeah. And it's like if they can do it, hey, why can't I do it? And
You,
instead
you,
of
tou- you
borrow
touched
some,
you touched on a very relevant point there as well, and that is the fact that you're in your twenties.
yeah,
And I think what you're saying there has got a lot of meaning for people in their twenties because they can do it. They're they're almost naive enough,
yeah,
sort of late teens, early twenties. They're almost naive enough. Uh, some would put it not naive. Naive is the wrong
they
word.
haven't
That's
they haven't got all
uneducated.
that programming.
Yeah, they haven't subjected themselves, or they haven't been subjected to that sort of
Yeah,
sociological, I don't know, pressure or programming, like you say,
yeah,
and they can do it automatically. So it's because it's quite rare. You hear a lot about grumpy old man.
yeah,
You don't hear a lot about grumpy young man, do you? Because they have that natural, I suppose, position in their minds where they recognize, or they do it subconsciously. They
yeah.
move on.
But saying that now, I've met people in their twenties that are ready for the deathbed purely because of their attitude. I mean, and it's like,
Oh
geez,
yeah, that's what some people call a victim mentality these days.
yeah, and it's like blow me down. It's like what's their problem? But they're ready. They're just short of the grave. I mean, their body is walking around, but as far as they're concerned, they're dead
Yeah,
and gone. And it's like that too. You see a lot of people in their 90s. There was something on there aside from the Japanese. There was, I think, it was some place in South America or something, and they were 100. They were 110 or 120. They had forgotten how old that they were because they were brought up.
yeah, and just
They were
getting on with
brought up.
life.
Yeah, they were brought up in a village where birthdays weren't celebrated and you irked
Yeah,
out a living and you just got on with things. And this particular, she was a woman. She was a great, great, great grandmother. There was 5 generations of people living in the same house with her. And it's like, wow. And somebody said, just 5. How old does that make you? You know, because with most people, they'd be a grandmother, maybe a great grandmother, but that's usually as far as it goes, you know, not a great grandmother. And they kind of went through things and realized that she was like 120, 140, something like that. And it was like crazy. You know, and it's very seldom you hear about people like that too, but they're there,
Yeah,
you know.
and that sort of spins off into another sort of sub-subject as well, and that is the fact that uh, I'd like to hear your words on this because I'm just spinning ideas here.
Mm,
One of the things that goes through my mind a lot is the fact that I've spent some time in Asia, Southeast Asia,
mm,
and Middle East and all over the place. But Southeast Asia, I met people there, and they were multi-generational households.
yeah,
Their community was together, but their community was a series of extended families, if you see
yeah,
what I mean. So, and when I came back, that in particular was in Malaysia, on Penang Island, and when I got back, I realised that we've forgotten all about that this side of the water. You know, it seems to be that sort of me, and as the people get older, yeah, they still do stuff, but they do stuff with the family, and the family soak up the difference when they can't do it anymore and stuff like that. So,
exactly. But I think somewhere along the line too in the West, you know, you're told, especially like, you know, get to programming again, where when you get to retirement age, you know, you start reaching your 60s and it's like, oh, well, you know, uh, you better do it now because you might not be here tomorrow, you know, in a way.
get on the slag heap, lad.
Yeah, yeah, but in many ways, like society would tell you, well, that's it. No, you're fucked. You know, you're goose. Next step, you know, is in get your grave ready. You know, get your place in order. And it's like where a lot of these the old societies, well, you die when you die type of thing. But nobody said that when you're 60 or 70, well, that's it. You know, you have no value anymore because they're the elders have value and they give value and they have, I suppose, self-worth and self-esteem because they're contributing not the same way as young people, but they're contributing to the benefit of the collective. Where I think a lot of people reach, you know, retirement age and that's it. They're pushed to the scrap heap and they're told that's it. You know, you've no value anymore. And it's all about, you know, you look at the television, the programs, it's all about the young and looking lovely and young. And doesn't matter, you gotta. It's like
I, the reason I asked that was because because there's something going on in this little town I live in Suffolk. Okay,
mm,
up in Carrotland, and we've got like the church in the centre of town has been turned over to like an arts centre, and they've got a job fair there on Saturday coming.
right.
Okay, so I'm thinking, well, okay, I want stuff to do.
Mm,
I'm looking at stuff to do. So why wouldn't I go to a job fair with my walking stick,
yeah,
okay, and go in there and say, look, I've had 40 odd years experience in the workplace. I've run companies. I've done this. I've done that. I've been here. I've been there. Okay. Surely there's somebody that would want to suck that information out of me.
yeah.
But I look at all the adverts for this job fair and there's not one person on it over probably 22. What they're looking for is graduates, fresh graduates, and kids straight out of school and stuff like that. And, and I just thought, well, hold on a second. We've got a lot to offer. You certainly, I find you really interesting guy to talk to because you've done things I haven't, and I've done things you haven't, and the same is true of so many thousands of people out there, just in our sort of part of the world. You think about across Europe. And then probably, I don't know about the States. I really don't understand the States. I just don't understand it. I've not been there. So,
Land of the young and the beautiful.
well, yeah, I suppose really that was the start of it, wasn't it? Sort of, I got grey hairs in my beard. And I suddenly went, I look old. I thought,
Mm.
I don't give a crap. That's my badge of courage. I've lived through things to make that grey. I've lived through things you haven't even thought of, pal. And so yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to go there, I think, and just say, look, don't forget about this huge, huge section of society that I would love, as you probably would, I would love to pass my experiences on and my skills on to a new generation. It will put a twinkle in my eye just to get it
Oh,
out there.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's hard fought and won.
yeah. And that's probably one of the problems or the issues with America at the moment is that there's so many of them out there disfranchised. People who live a certain way or were brought up a certain way who are not all about the uh, buying stuff and who haven't bought into that way of being. And there's no there's no life there for them. It's all about the young and the beautiful and being this way and that way and pursuing certain things. Where life is a lot more varied than that. And that we need to take note from the indigenous people and see how they operate in their societies and say, yeah, that's a far healthier
Yeah, they must have done
society.
something right for thousands of
Yeah,
years.
absolutely. And where everybody has value and everybody has worth. Yeah, it's amazing. But you can see here now in this country here as well, everything is geared towards the young. And all you hear, you see on the television is all about getting Botox and about plastic surgery and
Oh
having the
God,
right
yeah.
type of physique and you got
You
to
got to look the part before you even think about being the part. You know.
that's it, you know, and that you can't if you can't age gracefully, like is that you got to be young and beautiful and you got to be a certain way. It's a brand new world we're living in out there, and when they want to turn us into the Borg as well, have these chips in the head that
To
I
be
suppose
quite
somebody
honest with
thought it was a
you,
good idea.
I probably would have given one of my arms for it back when I was like 18 or 19. So, what, have a pooter
Yeah,
do it all for you. Have a computer do it all. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, bring it
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah.
I'll be lazier than the next man. But
I suppose there's warranty for it. There was a program on there the other day, and there was this person with again they were back from one of the conflicts, and they had lost their arms, and so they had this robotics, but that it was a chip that was inserted in the brain, and it's like with the hardware and the software, and so that they were able to do things with these robotics that people wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. So in that sense, it's good, but not for healthy people. People who have,
that's it.
who have all of their limbs.
It's technology. At that point, it becomes technology for technology's sake,
Yeah,
and also it's not necessarily progress if nature has already given you the ability to do certain things, and then
yeah, but
you want to do more than that, so you
yeah,
have a chip implanted.
yeah, but it's not just nature. We have divinity, human beings. The difference between us and the rest of the animals is that we have a soul, we have divinity, we have a spirit within us. So by putting these chips, you're telling the spirit, you can fleck off now. Like we have this covered.
You're not needed anymore. You're outdated, pal.
Yeah, yeah,
No longer supported. Windows 4 is no longer supported.
exactly. And so you no longer become human. You become like the Borg, a cyborg, you know, and
Yeah,
like the cars.
what do you think? Do you think that's where conspiracy theory comes from? Because I think a conspiracy theory is it's a lot of things have been like it in the past, and a lot of things are like it now. I feel that it's about control
Yeah,
of the what they used to say is control of the great unwashed. It's basically control of the masses.
yeah,
Uh, so it's in an ordered fashion, and certain people can benefit from it. But I wonder if that's where that what came first. I wonder the that trying to move forward to like this sort of cyborg relationship,
mm,
or whether it was conspiracy theories first, and somebody thought, "Well, that's a good idea."
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
ponder strange things sometimes.
yeah, well, you would have to wonder. Yeah, one of my favorite authors, Tom Clancy. Now he's dead now, but the stories, his novels, especially when the President Ryan and his son now, they're part of this uh, like an elite group of
Yeah,
mercenaries, for want of a better word. But the situations that they find themselves in and their stories and the technology that they have in the books, you're reading about this and it's great, and it's a novel. But the next thing, a couple of years later, all of a sudden it's like, hang on, I was reading about that a couple of
yeah.
years back, in a
Did he
novel.
know something we didn't?
Yeah. But you got to wonder too, like with all of these terrorists, that all they need to do is pick up one of these good Tom Clancy or the one of these books
That's
and
a
get
helpful
ideas
book,
on,
isn't it?
yeah, exactly. Get
Is
ideas
the
on how
is
to,
the Puffin book of technology for good or bad?
yeah. No, that could be completely wrong. But at the same time, you'd have to wonder, because once this information is out there, like the Twin Towers, crashing airplanes into the Twin Towers. Now, again, they have done reconstructions of that, like, and what would happen if that did happen. And none of it was the way they fall straight down in a
No, that
line.
was
It was,
there was loads of stories. I actually looked into it to a little bit because one of the guys, one of the like really strong engineers, said that the aeroplane fuel wouldn't burn at sufficient temperature to melt the core steel
yeah,
because it's a certain type of steel, and it's liquid point or its malleable point really is much higher than that would burn
yeah,
than air fuel would burn. And then they went on. Then they sort of stretched a bit, and I saw it as a stretch a bit, but they said that when you actually look at it in slow motion, uh, you actually see what looks like controlled demolition charges.
yeah,
Now, one person did say that nobody would confirm it or deny it, but a number of those buildings, because they were on the edge of technology when they were built,
yeah,
a number of those buildings, apparently, this guy was saying, were probably inbuilt with controlled demolition charges in case something went wrong. So they could actually say, well, okay, the building's not safe anymore. We'll just control demolish it.
yeah,
So the technology was already built in. So people were saying, but there was a real stretch. But it's that thing, isn't it? It's where you listen to so many things which are structured to confuse or to
yeah.
divide
Half
that
truths, yeah,
yeah you can't tell the truth from the
yeah,
pork pies,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they make it sound very plausible, but when you look at it, I remember that the IRA blew up Nelson's Pillar in Dublin, and which was a statue, which was, I can't remember how big it was, but it caused all sorts of damage. There was buildings all around the place where it had holes in them and stuff like that, from this thing that blew up because it blew out. Those towers, they had buildings beside it, still standing. The windows were gone, but they're still
yeah,
standing, not no damage to them at all. So it was like very clinical. I mean, they have these smart bombs that just, that they can,
yeah, almost
yeah,
like implosion, controlled
exactly.
controlled controlled
Yeah, exactly.
explosion.
So it's very plausible. I mean, there was a couple of those towers where can't remember what country, but in England now, when they were bringing down those towers, um, from the 60s, from the 50s and the 60s, that they recognized, okay,
Ah,
living in them
yeah,
is no good. And until they got the hang of it, they were blown all over the place. They weren't just coming straight down. They were going all over the
exactly.
place.
And those trade towers probably had more. rebar in stressed concrete, because what people don't realize is when you've got a core building like that, it's a steel down through the core. So
Mm.
you've got like a skeleton, a
Yeah.
backbone. Uh, when you push out with the concrete, what tends to happen is either use rebar, reinforcement bar, or you can use stressed bars or stressed cables.
Mm.
And they do it with bridges where inside the concrete, there's a tube in the concrete,
Yeah.
and they bolt it either end, if you like, and then they tighten it so it stresses the concrete, and you can like literally a third of the concrete thickness. One of my mates was into that for bridges. You know, he did that for his living,
Yeah.
and so when that building came down, or the buildings came down, I just found it really strange. Now, if there's truth to why it came down, then just tell us the truth. You know, if
Yeah.
if and it was just, and problem is when conspiracy theories are out there, when it's actually partly the truth, and they don't acknowledge it, the authorities, if you like, don't
Yeah.
acknowledge it, or the media don't acknowledge it, it just pushes people to believe that more and more is a lie,
Yeah.
and it's the opposite of control of the masses.
This is it. And I mean, it's maybe that's the outcome that they want is to have people confused. Well, definitely they want. I think they definitely people want scared, so that they're compliant and saying yes to whatever it is that
Yeah,
powers that be say to them.
because I think back, they do this divide and conquer thing where sort of, oh, a person of color and stuff like that. Okay, fair enough. Then when I was at school, there was one lad in my class, guy called Terry. Okay,
Mm.
and he was Afro-Caribbean parents.
Yeah.
Okay, Windrush generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in he comes, and we were mates for ages. Okay, he
Yeah.
started with me at the age of 11 in secondary school. Okay, same class. We went right through school together, and we were top mates. He was a brilliant lad, and all the
Yeah.
rest of it. And I went round his house lots of times, and his mum was fantastic to me, and all the rest of it. And then somebody said to me, "Oh, you go around with that black kid, don't you?" I went, "Sorry, that black kid? What do you mean, Terry?" I went, "Oh yeah, I go around with Terry. Yeah, but he's a black kid." And
Yeah.
it was just be good mate, and that was like sort of early 70s, 71 onwards. I went through school with him, and there wasn't, people going, "Oh, it used to be so racist then." Where we were, it wasn't. Okay, maybe in the centre of London or something like that, maybe it got like that because they put people of the Windrush generation were all placed in like the same area of London.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But it's all divide and conquer, isn't it? It's because I've worked with people from all over the world. The company I worked for, one of the companies I worked for over in the Middle East, we had 72 different nationalities in the company. 72. I didn't At that point. I didn't know there were 72 countries.
Yeah. And probably it is. I mean, because I mean, a lot of people don't. I think when you're young, you just see them as another human being. You don't see them as a color or religion doesn't come into things, oh, they're a Muslim or they're
Exactly.
Protestant or Catholic or whatever. They're Jew. They're just another human being type of thing. I think it's the adults who say, "Oh, don't be hanging around with them," and they'd be using the words or whatever. Again, fear.
Yeah, they're not good people. Them. They live
Yeah,
across the other side of the street. They're not good people.
yeah. I mean, here we had like in Dublin, it was like, oh, like I was from the north side, and they were saying, oh, the south side, they're all lottie dotty, you know, and you'd be saying, I wouldn't be hanging around with them fellas, purely because of the area that they're from, and yeah, we've lost the run of ourselves, I think.
Yeah, I think, but yeah, with people, it is. once again, it's part of the human condition because people are tribal anyway, and they
Mm,
think like I think it's madness. Okay, this is madness to my mind. I look at it and say, how crazy is that? And that is that when people say, "Well, I'm a West Ham supporter," you idiots up in Tottenham, they're just up the road, man. And the fans of Tottenham and the fans of West Ham are scattered across the bloody world.
yeah.
Yet they still hold on to this tribe of football. And I just think, well, it's so pathetic that in my mind, I don't subscribe to it. But I know a lot of people do. An awful lot of people do.
But not only that, they want to beat them up because they're different supporters.
Oh God,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
crazy.
I can remember my cousin was a member of the West Ham crew, ICF, in the city firm they call themselves.
Mm.
And so, all right, mate, how you going? He used to go, oh, we went up to Leeds last week. Oh, dear, what a scrap! We really did them over. Okay, so that's good. Is it? That's on
Mm.
that's on your tick box list. Is it? Went up, had
Yeah,
a scrap.
but I suppose they have too. That's the kind of the way it was, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. But I think we've evolved more than that, where we realize, that there's far bigger issues than causing aggro with somebody just because of their color or their race or the country that they're living in. We've got global warming, we've got issues with food, with rain when it's not supposed to be rain. And you look at Spain and the floods and all the rest of it. I mean, there's far bigger things going on in the world that we need to be focusing on instead of pettiness, that, you're following the wrong
Yeah,
football team.
and I think the problem, what makes it continue like that to some degree, is this is the nanny state that seems to be
Mm,
developing everywhere. Everywhere you look in the Western world, anyway, everywhere you
yeah,
look
yeah,
is developing nanny state. Oh, don't do that.
yeah.
There's a great comedian. I can't even remember his name now, but I was watching his show a few weeks ago, and he said cycling in the UK. Oh, it was Steve Hughes, the Australian comedian. He said cycling in the UK, ridiculous. He said, "Oh, you cycle over there, you can't cycle like that, can't cycle like that." He said, "You go to Holland, not so much now, but he said, you go to Holland." He said, "You cycle along a road." He said, "Right by the side of a canal." He said,
Mm,
"And in England, there'd be barriers everywhere and signage and stuff like that. And so life vests hanging on the bloody railings and stuff." He said, "No, in Holland, say, oh, you cycle along here. If your bike's getting wet, you're in the wrong spot."
yeah. Don't cycle
That's
in the
it.
river.
There's, there's no such thing as common sense anymore. And the nanny state has wiped out the last vestiges of it, I think.
Yeah. But you do, but you hear some ridiculous things and it's like, geez. I mean, what was it there with the microwave? And it was like warning signs. This is when microwaves came out first. And I remember seeing that and it's like, don't put your dog in the microwave to dry them. And it's like,
What?
people do that. But apparently people were turning on the oven and and it's like,
It's like on some foods, you see. I saw this the other day and I just picked it up and I couldn't help but laugh. It said, "Caution, when cooked, this will be hot."
yeah,
No, surely not.
yeah. But you're even on the airplane now. They give you warnings with the thing, that this is hot. Be careful, But
Yeah,
I know.
the thing always makes me laugh about that was I just tell you briefly. We were on flights in South Africa. We went down to South Africa for a holiday.
Mm,
A wife had uh, uh, family members down there. Been there for many years. So we went down there, and when we were taking internal flights in South Africa, because it's a long way, like 5, 8 hour drive,
yeah, yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. Some places. So we flew on this online airline booking thing, which is called Kalula.com.
Mm,
And I don't even know if it still exists, but Kalula.com. It was great because they just stripped back basics. It was the old British Airways planes from the 50s and 60s. Still had like hat pegs on the seat in front as you sat in, and no seat allocations. You just get on board, and the first 5 rows are for families only, stuff like that. But it was just immensely good fun and stripped back, bare and sensible, you know. And when they did the usual sort of overview, when member of the stewards or stewardesses sort of comes on, oh, thank you for flying Kalula.com. Next time you fancy hurtling through space in an aluminium tube at 300 to 400 miles an hour, think of Kalula.com. Nobody loves to take your money more than us.
Right.
But it's that sort of common sense thing, and they were hugely successful at the time and cheap, man. We
Mm,
flew from, I think it was a 55 or 60-minute flight from uh, Johannesburg down to Cape Town.
mm,
And it was at the time, obviously, the Rand was like 12 to the pound then, but it worked out, I think it was for the three of us, myself, my wife, and my young son, who at the time he was about 13. And I think it was something like £38 for the three of us.
mm.
But it was nice, and it's those things don't exist anymore because everybody's assumed to be complete idiot. And you see it all the time on Facebook. I was brought up in the '60s. It says, we used to eat dirt, play with hammers, and make bombs. We're all right. We survived.
Yeah. Yeah, but different, yeah, different time, different strokes and
Yeah. Well, I,
content.
I honestly think, mate, that you because people come from different places and different backgrounds and have different experiences, uh, that we've always got a piece of advice. Now, let me ask you this, okay? Two-part question, okay? Number one is I, for one, as with I think most people, I don't know, but I think most people have in their formative years, in their 20s, maybe late 20s, or whatever, but they have like somebody who's a bit of a sort of a part-time mentor, somebody they work with or somebody they know in the family. Okay.
Yeah.
Number one, did you and who was it? And number two is if you had a piece of advice that you've learned through your life for somebody in their 20s or at a pivotal point in their life, in their sort of mid late 20s or whenever, what would it be?
Well, I remember when I was 17 when I went working on the cargo ships. So the being green and being from different area and all of this other stuff being on cargo ships, the chief steward took me under his wing and sort of, but he became like a mentor, but not necessarily good because he had his own programming as well, and he had his own thing. So, um, eh, but having a mentor is invaluable. You need to have a mentor. This the same thing again when I worked as a chef. There was always somebody there that um, would guide you and say this way, that way, and would sort of recognize your strengths and your weaknesses and help you along the way. And we all need that. Um, I I think like with a lot of things too, we need to be careful who we follow because sometimes we can follow, the guy with the big mouth and it's like, oh, I'm the king of the castle. And it's like, and we say, oh yeah, he's a great lad. And we don't realize that he's a bigot or he's this or he's that or he's caught in his own little thing. And we follow them or emulate them. And it's like, this is not good. This is not, this is not
It's
ethical,
leaving tears.
like how people get stuck in gangs, and all of a sudden end up
yeah, fall in with the wrong crowd, basically.
Exactly. And it's there are people who were looking for mentors, who were looking for to belong. I think we all need that. But we have to choose wisely and make sure and hopefully that we get a good mentor. Uh, who had there was when I went to school, this is like when I'm between six and 11 or 6 and 12. The I had dyslexia, but I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't know what that was.
Oh,
So
snap, mate.
I had a problem when the teacher was standing up there and saying, and for me, it was like,
Just
what
water
is
on
he
the
saying? I don't
rocks.
know. Yeah, gobbledygook. But what the teacher was doing was one, he'd be telling you you're stupid, and he'd be going around with, at that time, they had either a cane, or if you happened to be with the Christian Brothers, they had the leather belt. And they'd be marching up and down like the
We had the
prison
board
warden.
rubber.
Whop, whop, whop. You go, what? And so I went back. I know my mother took me into hospital. It was the children's hospital to kind of do some sort of. I never talked to her about it, like what it was specifically for or why she brought me there. Maybe they figured that something wasn't quite right there and that, things weren't. So she brought me to, and I remember there were, you get round pegs and square pegs and you had to put them into the holes, and you had all of these things that you had to do to see what, your coordination and what we were thinking. And I remember that quite distinctly. But I was held back 2 years because I wasn't cutting the grade. So they held me back 2 years. And at that time, a new teacher joined the school. And I was fortunate enough that became my teacher. And it was from him I was able to learn. All of a sudden, I realized that I wasn't stupid. I just learned differently. And I got a love then of books and of learning. And I used to start reading books. And who was it at the time? It was he was an adventurer, and he was playing Biggles, and he was Biggles, and
Oh,
there was a
gosh.
whole
Yeah, I
there
remember
was a
that
whole
series of.
the whole
Damn, they
series
were
of Biggles.
good, man.
Yeah, and oh, I used to love these books, and it's like, yeah, and I'd be, driving these planes and all the rest of it. But after that teacher, I never had another teacher like him, unfortunately. I had him for 2 years, and he really did great stuff with me. After that, um, it was back to the old system again,
Yeah.
bang on the head, on with
Yeah.
the cane. And
Beat
so I
beat you
said,
down and see if they can beat some sense in you.
yeah. So I said, saw that, and I ended up going to sea, and that became my education, working on cargo ships, and then again on the ship we had a library, we had books there of every description, and I read and read, and I haven't stopped reading since, and I haven't stopped educating myself since. So that was one person that he had a profound effect with me. And was there another one? Um, when I was studying to be a chef, the head guy, he was the head. I suppose he was the head teacher, and he happened to be a chef as well. And he liked me, and maybe he saw the my potential, and so that he sort of helped me and steered me along the right way. And as far as going for jobs, he'd help me, going to the right places to work in, rather than, So from that, I always knew that all I had to do was ring this guy, and I'd get a job like that, and it'd be in a good place. So that was good. And at the same time, when I was studying to be a chef, was at the time that I ended up in hospital. And because he liked me, and there was competitions going on in the colleges, for cooking cakes and stuff like that. He used to pick the best one of that day, and he'd send it up to the hospital to me. Now, of course, I couldn't eat the cakes and the stews and all the rest of it. So the nurses who happened to be looking after me got the benefit of it. So I had all of the nurses. Oh, got to be looking after that cabinet fella because he gets cakes every day.
Them cakes are a die for, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's I was really looked after when I was in hospital, and the people who looked after me were looked after because I had all these cakes and beef stroganoffs coming up and uh, coq au vin and all sorts of good stuff like that. I mean, he was sending me up the best attack, and it was great. And so, yeah, but it was since then I was always looking for a mentor, especially when I was trying to move out of it and coming across like with cryptocurrency, you need to sort of you need to have a mentor to sort of navigate through that.
Mm.
Working with network marketing companies and stuff like that, you definitely need a mentor, to try and navigate through things and what's the best way for team building and for for what companies to join, which ones are ethical and what to look out for, and not to be always going after the next shiny thing that comes up and sounds great. And it's like, oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it
And
sparkles.
yeah, and then you realize that they're slee beans and they're ripping everybody off, or that they're doing something unethical. So it's definitely it's very important to have a good mentor all through your life. I would say all through your life,
Yeah,
even now.
I've lost that because my main mentor throughout, the one mentor that stayed with me throughout was my wife, and she was because I was dyslexic as well.
Mm,
I could hardly write by the time I was 11.
mm,
And when they sent me to secondary school, they just said, "Oh, you're mental. You're just thick as a brick. You'll never
yeah,
make
yeah,
anything of yourself." And my maths teacher taught me that in maths, everything's got a formula. So all you
yeah,
got to do is remember the formulae.
yeah,
And Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Everything's everything. So I was crap at things like English and stuff like that and
yeah,
geography, but come to maths, I could do it. Try just a formula, isn't it?
yeah,
So,
yeah. And like you
but
said, everything's a formula.
yeah, and then when I came out of there and I did my apprenticeship, and I loved that because it was hands on rather than book
Mm,
learning.
mm,
So I could get stuck in. I could understand the fact that if I did that, it hurt, or if I did that, the piece wasn't very good. So, but then when I got together with my wife, and we were fairly young, we were about 21, 22.
mm,
When I got together with her, it was she was just like this misunderstood. She never felt like she knew what she was doing or knew
right.
what she was good at, but she could listen to you and then just say to you, I used to say to her, just tell me the first thing that comes into your head.
Yeah.
And every time she did, she was right. I
Mm,
followed the advice and everything works out right. So you're right. You do need that mentor. I was
yeah.
lucky with that I had that mentor, but since she's been gone, it's 9 years now. And I've been a bit rudderless
Yeah.
because I haven't had this mentorship. Now,
Yeah.
Jerome was a great mentor for me for quite a while,
Mm,
but we got involved in too many different things, and it was just basically uh, we became great friends,
mm,
but we set business aside, if you see what I mean.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And but so you're right. You need that mentor, and I think if I was to give advice to my earlier self or kids of today, if you like, sort of school leavers and university leavers of today, I think I would probably say to them that the mentor would be the thing. Find somebody who's good at what you want to do
Yeah.
and find some way to be around them. Even if
Yeah.
it's, it might be internship, which I don't think is correct if, in a lot of ways, because they're basically milking the interns for zero outlay. But find yourself a mentor or go and do a job and find somebody in the company who's a good mentor who can steer you through it.
Yeah,
What would you,
and that
what would your advice be to them?
find out what you're good at, because a lot of things that you're good at, you might not recognize that. That was what was good with and this was in relation to the American Indians, the Indians on the plain,
Yeah.
where the elders would look at the young people coming up and they'd say, "Oh, he's the next medicine man. He'll be a good
Oh
uncle.
yeah. So
He's a
spotting the
good leader."
traits in them.
Yeah. So that was the role of the elders, was that they recognize and they guide you to be coming from your strengths. But you have to know what your strengths are.
Yeah.
And so that would be one thing I would be to discover what are my strengths, and to get somebody who can help you with that, discover what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And I was, the thinking when I was growing up, it was discover what your weaknesses were, and then you were encouraged then to develop them, where really all you're doing is you're watering down everything. You want to discover what your strengths are and increase on them, build up on
Yeah.
your strengths, because then you become a master at something from a strength point of view, not milking everything down. And so that's one thing, and it's kind of not to be chasing the dollar, but to find out what it is that you're good at, what comes naturally to you, and what you like doing, and to do more of that.
And I
Because
think, yeah,
there's
you're
so
right because they've got to think, or I now know that realize that money should be a resultant rather
yeah,
than a driving
absolutely, yeah,
force.
yeah, 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 yeah. My ex-wife now, Susie, that's dead, God bless her. She was a brilliant artist, and she taught herself, but she'd get down and 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and she'd have this painting of a beautiful flower and the detail that she had in it. And it's like, wow, she found them too easy to do. So she dismissed it altogether. Now I encouraged her to develop it a bit more, and she got to the stage where she would get in the right headspace, and she was selling her paintings for 3, 4, 500 euro a pop, and they were brilliant. But because they was too easy, she didn't have any value to it. I said, "You're creating beauty here," and so she let it slide, and she sort of went down the route of the restaurant, following the money. Um, for a lot of different things, security and all the rest of it, these things that
Mm.
you think are important, and then realize, well, it's a fool's errand, and that they should have been doing something different all your life. And so that's something. And you're talking about being rudderless. I have kind of found myself for the realization that for the last 25 years, I've been helping other people, looking after my mother, looking after Susie, helping her looking after the restaurant, now looking after my father. And I'm thinking, what about me? What about Declan Cabinet? What am I doing? And that was one thing that Susie was always saying to me. She says, what are you going to do? Who's going to look after you? You're putting everything out there looking after other people. Then what are you going to do? And when she was gone, and it's kind of like feeling that, now what am I going to do? Who am I going to look after now?
Oh,
And
you're lost, aren't you? At that
yeah,
point, you're just
absolutely.
lost.
And subconsciously, I was looking to attach myself to somebody else to look after, because that was defining who I am. I had to ask myself, again, hang on a minute, that's not who I am. I have my wants and my desires, and what I have a value to bring, and that I need to be living my life, not somebody else's life. And so I'm still kind of going through that process now, and if you like,
I,
discover
I
what
don't
do I
think
want to
treading
do?
that road ever finishes. I don't think you ever get to any form of destination. I think it once again it sounds trite and people overuse it, but it's all about the journey.
Yeah.
And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
and the other thing that I find in myself, which I know I've done, especially the last few years, I know I've done it, and that I make decisions from a place of fear.
Yeah.
So that it's almost like you're sort of saying, well, okay, so this doesn't happen, I'm going to do
Mm.
this.
Yeah.
And it's the wrong place to step from. Like you said, you know, instead of working on the weaknesses, work on the strengths. So I should
Yeah.
be saying, well, this is good, so
Yeah.
therefore I can make it better with this
Yeah.
decision,
Yeah.
rather than I'm trying to avoid this because it scares me crapless, you know?
Yeah. The other thing that I realized too is that, when we try to do everything by ourselves, yeah, it can work out, but it's the hard road.
It's a
It's
crap
far better.
it's a
Yeah.
crapshoot though, isn't it?
It,
It's a game of
yeah,
chance.
absolutely. When you get a good mentor, plus connecting with the divine, for we all have the spirit within us. And when we connect with our deeper self, or we're made up of three, if you like. We have the ego self, which is worried about, looking after the body, feeding it, getting it warm, all of sort of bodily functions. And then we have the mind, which tries to be more, work things out. But then we have our higher self, the part, our soul, the part that's connected to the spirit, to the minutiae of all that is. And when we realize that, we can bring our thoughts upwards to all that knowing, and then to bring that forth, and then move on. Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, all of these great people who were thinking, who connected with the the grid out there and where all of the knowledge is. For everything that ever was, ever will be, is already here now. We just need to be able to connect to that and to bring that down. And we get that by going inside, discovering who am I? What am I all about? I am more than just this flesh and blood. I am, Jesus tells us, the Bible, if you pick any place, it tells you God is within, divinity is within. We have this spirit within. People use different words to describe what that is, but everywhere they realize we have this thing inside. And that's the part we need to connect with. And when we can connect with that, we bring something, we can create magic. We can, because we realize it's not just me, this little small self, this little ego body that's trying to do something, but you're coming from a bigger place. And
Hmm.
and with the strength and the guidance of spirit and a good mentor, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. And that's the difference,
Yeah, and I think
rather than,
you're right because a lot of the times in my life, and I've discussed this with other people, and I've got similar stories from some of them, but I always had this feeling that I was born to do more,
yeah,
not because not I was born to be more successful, but I
yeah,
was born to do more.
yeah,
I was born to be more than this.
yeah,
If you see what I mean? Because I came from back end of a council house, blah 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 blah. My dad was like brilliant. My mum was utterly brilliant. Both of them strong as an ox, and neither of them
mm,
were driven by money. They were just
yeah,
driven by family, community,
yeah,
and laughter.
yeah,
My dad was a big old joker. So, but coming from that, but when I started being a success, I went out in the market, working place after my apprenticeship, and I went into sales because I always blah blah blah, always bunnying
yeah,
on, as you know. And so I went into sales. I thought, what a great success! I was earning really well. I had a
mm,
nice car. Darty dar this, darty dar that. I thought I'm the big I am.
mm,
I really did. And my dad dragged me back down to earth one day. Because I was living with my soon-to-be wife at the time, and went round to see my mum and dad. And my dad dragged me back down to earth. He said, "Well, of course," he said, you're not a success." He said, uh, "You haven't told me one thing that was fun.
yeah,
You haven't told me one thing that you did for somebody else." And I went, "Ouch, Dad. Look, I'm trying my hardest." He goes, "Exactly. You're trying. Don't try, just do."
yeah,
And he said, "And don't do success. You can't do success. All you can do is good things."
yeah,
Finished. And that knocked me off my feet for a good while. It really did. But then when I came back from it, I thought, I don't want to be doing this. It was hollow.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it is. It's a lot of things that people of our age group, if you like, I'll call it an age group because you're probably a bit younger than me to say the least. Um, but people of our age group, when they put us on the scrap heap, effectively or sociologically, they put us on the scrap heap. There's a lot of hard fought and won learnings there, and I think we can make a difference
Yeah.
if we only find one. I don't know, Richard Branson, one prime minister in being, one person who will solve homelessness or whatever, and give them 5 minutes of mentorship. One of us give them 5 minutes of mentorship, then it's a success. It's because all this stuff is just. I'm very conscious of the fact that it's just going to go to my grave with me.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want to go to our grave with our song still inside. We need to sing that song. We
Yeah,
need to
we need
be
to
who we are.
sing the song, yeah,
Yeah.
and
And I
and
think
it
when
is that it's like, sing like nobody's listening,
yeah,
so dance like nobody's watching.
like watching, yeah. But I think when we take the focus off ourselves and put it in and say, okay, how can I be of service? How can I benefit Johnny down the road there? Because we can look around and you can see somebody that needs help, and you're talking about mentoring. I think a lot of the time, if you take time to look around and see the young people and recognize somebody says, I can help that individual, and you help them. Not for any gain, but just because you can.
Yeah,
And I think that's when we start doing things like that, I think that's the difference. Because there's plenty of people out there who only think about themselves and what they're getting. It's gimme, 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 gimme. And I think it's all about giving. I think when
they,
we give,
and we've already been there. A lot of us, I've been there certainly where I've had like stupid numbers of cars and plenty of money in the bank and all the
mm,
rest of it, and I just sat there and went, hold on a second. There's no substance behind this. I don't feel all that's happened is my fear is multiplied because I've got the fear of losing all the money that
yeah,
I've earned because money has
exactly.
been the issue,
Or who
not
wants to rob me, or who
not being
wants
a
to,
good
yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah. But absolutely, and I mean, and that becomes the thing. Yeah, if we collect all this stuff, then it's like we have to guard all this stuff because somebody might want to steal it from us, and it's like,
Oh,
oh, you know,
was it they say the power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely,
yeah,
and that's it.
absolutely,
And
yeah.
once you get in the ivory tower, that's when you start building all the walls to stop people coming up there and deposing you.
Mm. I like what Wayne Dwyer said when he was in his 60s and he realized, he'd all of this stuff. He had his library. He had a whole house for his office, and it was full of stuff. And he gets up one day and he realizes. So he tells his personal assistant, get rid of everything, give everything away, even my shoes. He says, Ah, and he moved to Hawaii, and he says I've never bought a pair of shoes since. He goes around in his now he's dead now, of course. But and again in Hawaii, you could probably do without shoes, because you're in a warm country and you got beaches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he just gave everything away, and it's like, yeah, the realization that what do you want all this stuff for?
Mhm.
What value is it? Give it away, get rid of it.
Just
You
quickly to
know?
finish, I just want to say one thing, and that is that it's great talking to you about all of this, and you
Mm,
you remind me of so many things have happened in my life, and that brings them to the forefront again, which are good things, They're
yeah,
good memories and good for a good reason. And this one that you've just been talking there about being service to people, there was some guy I met who didn't even realise he was having an effect on me. Okay,
mm,
and I was on business in Colombo in Sri Lanka. I was there for I don't know, about a week or two. But we're staying in this hotel, and then we're going off to this place where we're having business meetings. And we stopped en route, and the local guy that I was working with there, He said, "Oh, we've got to stop." He said, I want to get some coconut water."
Oh,
I'm like, "Oh, okay." So side of the road, they chop off top off of a green coconut, put a straw in it, and you drink the coconut water. And it's gorgeous. It's like natural energy drink, just really good for you. And this guy, I got talking to the guy who was doing it. This little Sri Lankan man, he looked about, I don't know, 50, 55. And I got talking to him, and he's always got this big smile on his face. And I said, "Oh, do you do this for a living then?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He goes, I've got a shack back there, just by the side of the road there." I went, "Oh, right, okay. So is it just you?" He goes, "No, no, no. It's me and my wife and my 8 kids." I said, "Oh, what age are your kids?" Expecting him to say like they were sort of 20s and 30s. He said, "Well, the youngest one is about 7 months." I said, "Really?" I said, "What age are you?" He went, 72. And he's just had a kid.
mm,
And I just said to him, I said, "You're so smiling." I said, he said, "Well," I said, if I do this, I can feed my kids. That's all I need."
yeah,
And he was just smiled and looked, and I just thought, this business meeting doesn't mean anything. So I went into this business meeting, and I just said, the guy was had all sorts of objections. And I said, "With all due respect," I said, "I'm not going to try and talk you around. If you don't think it's for you, then great. Let's move on. It's a warm day out there. I fancy going to the rooftop
enjoy it.
bar back at the hotel and having a cold beer and a laugh if you're
Yeah,
up for it." And I went, "Yeah, go on then." And so we sat up there, and he signed on a dotted line that
yeah, yeah,
night
yeah.
over a cold beer. But that's what it was. It
Mm,
was just the guy put me back in touch with reality.
mm,
You don't need all this stuff. You don't need all these bits and pieces.
mm.
Find out what means something to you and concentrate on that.
Yeah, exactly. Simple.
Well, there you go, mate. That's the world bang to rights
I tell
in
you.
one chat.
As Bugs Bunny says, we did it again. Yubby dubby do. Oh,
That's a cracker, mate. Absolute cracker. It's
yeah,
great
yeah,
speaking to you, and thank you for this. And I really appreciate it. And I think we should start thinking about people inviting people, the two of us.
yeah,
If we carry this on together, okay, and we invite various people along the way,
yeah,
then I can actually learn something as well, because that's
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not learning anything at the moment,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
need to be learning something, because if I'm not learning, I'm not growing.
That's it.
Um, well, I am, but that's my tummy. But yeah, so if we could do that, it'd be great. And if you wouldn't mind, if you can share this video with me, because I know you've recorded it.
Oh,
If
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you can share this with me, do you mind if I put it out
No,
on
not at
social
all. Not at
media
all.
and just say,
No,
look,
no, no, no.
we
Absolutely.
think they're doing this with other interesting people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I have a few people in mind. And I'm sure you probably have people in mind too that we can. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Well, both of us have got people all over the place
yeah,
and all sorts of different people.
yeah.
Because when you get to our age group, you've been places and done stuff, some of which you can't talk about anymore.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.